Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think a couple
had in emancipating themselves.
Yo. What's up? We're back in here, back in the game here for another weekly Stay Black, where we just, talk about issues pertaining to black people, the African diaspora, and so forth. So, in this week's edition, I just thought I picked two interesting topics that I thought would be interesting to delve into, which is one notion of can black people work together, or why can't black people work together? Is that a reality? Is that a myth? We'll investigate that, and I'll tell you why I picked that. And also, the role in society or within black society or general society of light-skinned women. So I definitely want to try and delve into that. So hopefully we may try and get a few more guys in during the course of the show, but we'll see where we're at over there, So we've got our boy Tony G here, Corey White, and the big man, the hitman in here. So I think before we go there, I just think we just might as well, because he is the most trending individual right now in the world. I think that it's hard for you to turn away from him. It's your boy Trump. So we went in full detail as to the elections, post-election, Trump tweeting, and all this kind of stuff up and down. But I think it's he is still remaining firm. So he hasn't. So we would have assumed that he may have conceded, but he hasn't conceded yet. He is still fighting for every single vote in all of these different states and so forth. And he's still maintaining that he can still say what's up. So I want to come first to Tony on this one. Is where do you believe that Trump is just going to carry on with trying to fight for these votes all the way through until the inauguration, or do you see him eventually conceding, or or you don't think he'll ever come out and actually concede, Tony?
I honestly think that he'll formally concede come December 14th. I think right now there's a concerted effort with the Republican Party as a whole to really put their name out there because they see that they're losing ground in general with general support. I think that even in terms of talking about the establishment, as I've stated in past episodes, I think that right now the Democrats are definitely a force to be reckoned with as a whole. And I do believe that there are more Democrats in America than there are Republicans in general. So right now, I think that what Trump is doing, as well as the people who are backing him, is really trying to solidify the Republican Party as a force, as something to be respected. And one of the things that I believe is a really good indicator that he's not solely in this by himself is that there's a lot of GOP members who are running for Congress who are also getting backed by Trump and his supporters financially for recounts. It's not just Trump in general asking for these recounts. I think that even in Michigan, there is a black man who is getting supported by or being backed by the GOP and by Trump in general. I think his name is John James or something like that. And of course, I think there's a lot of identity politics being put into play here. With putting him into the forefront and saying like, hey, it's not just me, Trump, trying to get these recounts, but hey, there's also a black guy as well. So I think in general, what he is doing right now, of course, with him being president, he's the face of it. But I think it's the Republican Party as a whole backing him just for the namesake of the Republican Party.
All right, Hitman.
in terms of him conceding, I do agree with Tony. I think the earliest I see him conceding is December 14th, because December 14th, the key of that date is that December 14th is when the votes get certified. That's when they get certified and verified. If legal action, like people have been talking legal actions, there's been legal actions being thrown out on the regular, just completely. And because of that, and if this further happens, I mean, you won't see anything get elevated to the Supreme Court. People talk about the Supreme Court, but the problem is that in order for something to make it to the Supreme Court, it actually has to make it through it has to make it through the first step. So if it doesn't, if federal courts are throwing it out, the Supreme Court's going to look at it and say, why am I spending my time on this case? I mean, it's just like if you have a problem at a lower level, if like the people at the lower level are like looking at it like throwing it out, you could elevate it to the upper level, but the upper level is going to be like, why am I wasting my time with this? It's trivial. So a lot of those are happening. And pretty much the due date of the popular vote to the electors is December 14th. I think January 5th is when the electors make their vote. So if the electors make their vote, it's pretty much a done deal. And that's, I mean, but a lot of people concede at the first hurdle. If he would like at the first hurdle, like when the votes get certified by the state, it's gonna, I mean, pretty much he has very, very limited options. So I see him conceding at that point.
All right, CA. So the question is, Trump still refuses to concede. He's still trying to say what's up. He's still trying to fight this. Do you see a point when he just finally gives up and says, this is a losing battle, like I can't win and I can't go forth? Or do you think he'll just keep pressing all the way through? Yeah,
I mean, like I said last time, he can't keep pressing all the way. I mean, rules are rules. But if you know Trump, man, then like with any bullies, when they realize they can't win, then they'll throw their hands up and they'll be like, oh, well, I wasn't really, I probably wasn't going to win in the first place because this whole thing is rigged. This whole thing is you guys are cheating and I'm the victim here. So, there's nothing I can do. Like, I think at the end of the day, he's gonna, make a graceful exit. He's gonna, we can save face, and he's gonna eventually leave. I think so. I don't think. I mean, he's not gonna just sit in the White House or occupy the White House when there's a inauguration that has to happen, and there's the votes were legitimate and they didn't find any irregularities or anything worthy that can flip a state or something. So Biden is officially the winner. I think Trump is going to he's going to continue to just talk crap and save face and eventually leave. But like I said last time, I think the inauguration is going to be eventful. I don't think he's going to just gracefully bow out. That's not his style. He's going to talk some crap.
So you think he's going to throw shots at thingy?
He's definitely going to throw some shade at Biden. He's going to throw some shade at Antifa. He's going to throw some shade at the left wing. He's going to throw shade at the media. I think his last speech is going to be. I'll be surprised if his last speech is tempered and presidential. I think his last speech is going to be like all of his other speeches. I mean, he might even have the inauguration at a rally. He might say, "Fuck that! I'm going to have my inauguration at the rally, and you guys can do whatever you want to do at the White House." Just Trump is just kind of a wild card, man. You never know what he's going to do, But I don't think that I think that he's going to do what every bully does when they lose. He's going to just, oh well, this isn't fair anyway. You guys aren't playing by the rules. I'm just going to leave because this party blows anyway. Kind of thing, that's what I think. That's what I think his exit is going to be like.
Okay, so Corey, are you there? I know you told me that you wanted to step out. Are you there, Corey? All right, he's not there. So look, let's move on to our first main topic now, and that is this notion here about Black people working together. So, why did I even come up with this topic here? Let me even share this image of you right now, and I think it's an image that I sort of used. So I was watching a Damon Dash interview about like a day ago or so, and he then said to the interviewer that name me one time that Black people have stayed in business together. So the interviewer was like, no, name me an instance. Don't tell me about boycotting or coming together to boycott a basketball game. When have Black people as a whole stayed and stood together in business? And then you look at whether it's the Chinese, it's the Jews, it's the South Americans and everything. They have a very kind of strong tribal mentality of like, I will help my own. If I see someone that looks like me and so forth, I'm going to help them. And this is how we're going to sort of strive to go through. And I remember someone, I can't remember, I was watching an episode of Breakfast Club, and like this lady was, yeah, it was this lady who said, I don't know if it was Breakfast Club, it was someone else who said that, as bad as segregation was, there was somewhat of a benefit of it because it forced Black people to work together as a whole, and it's helped the money within the community a lot more. And even beyond that, whenever, even my experiences, whether it's through school or so forth, there just seems to be a much more winner takes all, individualistic mindset amongst Black people than there is amongst other groups. Because that in school, the Chinese guys, those guys are together through thick, and those guys are tight, 100%, they're fully tight. And you don't really see that with Black people as much. And my thing is, why? So almost two things. So it's, first of all, is if you believe so, why is that? Why can't Black people stay in business together in the same way as other racial groups do? Because the reality of the matter is that let's not live like if we're in La La Land, like, oh no, we should be able to work together despite of race. No, F that. The reality of the world is people relate to others who look like themselves. White people will help white people first before everyone else. Okay, Chinese people will help Chinese people first before everyone else. Every racial group will look out for their racial group first before they do everyone else. So there isn't a case of how, why do we have to be so tribal? You have to be tribal because that's just how the real world works. So I'll come first to Tony with this. So Tony, first off, so do you believe that Black people cannot stay together in business? Yes or no? And if you believe they cannot, why do you think that is?
In general, I think, So in general, I would say to Dame Dash's comment, I think it's partially false. I think that in times of like the Reconstruction era, even during the Civil Rights era, sort of to your point about during segregation, we were sort of forced to sort of stay within our circle and let the dollar circle around the Black society as a whole. But I do think that in terms of Black business, we conveniently forget about, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Tulsa, Oklahoma was just one incident, right? I mean, there was Wilmington, who knows, a plethora of different little pocket areas within the United States in the South. I mean, we forget about Booker T. Washington, what he was able to do with his school, and not even just his school, but he allowed the area, what would you call it, like the church beltway of the South. He really spoke about Black people, pulling up their bootstraps and working for themselves. And there were people that were under him that was sort of like working this machine to say like, hey, let's continue to support Black people in general. I think that the way that we stopped in a way is basically, I think that after a while, I think that in general, white society as a whole always sees us as competition in general. And I think that that's clear even with Carter G. Woodson's book that he wrote in like the 1930s, The Miseducation of the Negro. Even in that book, I mean, again, this man is writing this in the 1930s, and he's telling explicitly how he's in the Philippines and he's seeing how the US government is giving loans to Koreans and other persuasions of Asian society to come to America and start businesses. We even see it with the HB1 visas in Silicon Valley, how the US will go out of its way to go and get people from India and things of that nature to sort of come in and do what they do within the IT community, as if we don't, groom Black people within HBCUs or even in general schools in general to do some of the things that the US is sort of importing other immigrants to come into the United States and do. We even see that in the late 60s, right? Like even with the nursing industry, like, yes, there were definitely a lot of Black people that were starting to get into that industry, but you see more immigrants versus Black women who were forced to be maids and things of that nature. Those women that were actually, I guess, what you would call quote unquote ADOS people who had been here since the beginning of time. But the US, again, seeing them as competition sort of stops and puts puts a dab on what Black people can actually accomplish. And I think that until we really hone in on what Ice Cube was trying to say with his contract with Black America and saying like, hey, we need, equal opportunity with getting bank loans to even start businesses and things of that nature, even with the opportunity zones, which T.I. and Jeezy and all these other rappers were trying to really get the Black community to sort of come in and embrace as a whole. The whole premise was to force the government to see us as probable business owners. And the problem is that we've been sort of shelved out. Not that some people have not made it. And to your point, there is a lot of tokenism in all of this. And I think that they only allow a few of us to actually get in. And that's the problem. Not that we can't actually be business owners, but there are not going to be a bunch of Oprahs and Byron Allens in the world. And it's not because we are without ingenuity. It's more so because of the opportunities, the network circles that we're not allowed in because of the fear of competition.
I don't think it's fear of competition. I think it's just that we're not You're right. It comes down to networking. It's not air quote opportunity. It's people give money to people who think like them and network like them. You'll get a job faster because of who you know than what you know. There's dudes who are in historically Black colleges right now who will do nothing with that degree, not because they don't earn it and not because they aren't worthy, but simply because they didn't spend time in college networking properly. It comes down to that a lot.
And I agree with you on that. I think that in general, I know that we're not necessarily talking about the election right now, but I think that even in the way that like Republicans will go, or not even Republicans, the Democrats will go and embrace, the Latino vote and try to, get that. It's all about who is trying to network with you as well. To your point, like somebody who's coming out of the hood, like what are you supposed to do if you don't have those connections, if you don't know those people? You can get the degree, and that's part of the false narrative of like the American dream as a whole. It's not that everybody has the same opportunities as everybody. Yes, there is capitalism and the effects of that, but I think in general, like to your point, it's about nepotism, it's about networking. It's a whole scheme of things that people who are generally at the bottom of the totem pole don't get that same opportunity.
So,
and that's
but Tony, wait, let me ask you this question though. So let me paint a scenario, and I think this is what I want to get to everyone else. Let's just say you are a business owner and you own a very profitable business, or you've come into some money, or you've come into some capital. Would you look primarily to partner with Black people and do business with Black people and hire Black people, or would you just try and focus just hiring the best person for the job and your business? What would your mindset be? Would you be about, no, I want to make this an all Black thing, and I will look at for my business to be partnered with only Black people, or would you just branch out and just hire the best people for your business?
I think, we can look to Jay-Z to that, right? Like even the notion of Tidal being like this Black-owned business, but then
which I use, by the way, I use Tidal for that reason. There you go.
Yeah.
So.
Right, and he kept the same white staff, and we all, well, not me, but even I was a part of it. Like, oh well, here goes this Black man. He's owning this music platform or whatever. I want to support that. And then when the curtain is pulled and you see he's not technically hiring a bunch of Black people. I think that in terms of skills and things of that nature, all of that you have to sort of add to the equation to see, what you are susceptible to doing and growing that business. I think that, there's still like mom and pop shops, I guess, with restaurants and whatnot that ultimately hire Black people, or maybe even with franchising, I guess, like with Popeyes and things of that nature, where they'll go where they're primarily in the hood. So they're, hiring people that look like the customers. There are those instances. But in terms of these bigger productions like Oprah and all of that, like, yeah, I don't see a plethora of Black people being brought up to the forefront. Again, it could be tokenism, but it is also about making the people that you work with feel comfortable.
No. Wait, but Tony, my question is for you: would you hire Black people, or you would just hire the best people for the job if you were in that position?
I would want to do a mix of both. I think that I would feel responsible enough, especially if I had like Oprah money or Jay-Z money, I would feel the need to give opportunity to Black people. Now, in Kamala's terms, like I'm not just going to do it just for Black folks, but I mean, I would still feel a responsibility to hire a good number of Black people. I wouldn't completely shut them out because I believe I would come in understanding, you know, why it would be so hard for someone else to get into the room.
Okay. So I want to come to Shanika now. So Shanika, is your mic working there? Shanika Dawson, is your mic working there? All right, I don't think her mic is up there. So I'm going to come to Hitman with this, man. So Hitman, same thing question again is that, do you believe in this notion of Black people staying in business? And same question again, if you were a business owner and it came into a lot of money, would you hire primarily Black people, or you would just hire the best people for the job?
Those are two tough questions. Here's the deal. You got to think that there's a couple ways that people handle business. I'm gonna address your first question. I'm gonna address the second question first, which is hiring people, because in business sense, it comes down to pragmatism. Pragmatism, it's really about making sure that you do best for yourself, do best for your business, do best for yourself. And when it comes down to that, I mean, the main thing you're going to look for are people that you can trust, people that are best qualified for the job. Now, with that being said, obviously, I think that us as Black people, that what we have to do is that we should put that preference for hiring other Black people. But the thing is that we should be looking for the best Black people to do that. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's going to be other limitations like geography, whether they can get to you, transportation, whether they can get to you, and that matter of stuff. And that's really and those are all going to play factors. But I think that's really the big thing. Other than that, unless you got like a business where you can accept a certain level of failure, I mean, you can use that. If you can accept a certain level of failure, basically use that as a little barrier or buffer, so that you can bring in some young brothers and sisters, teach them the trade, and then build them up so that they can understand the field. But if it's something that's a short tolerance for failure, you're gonna have to find the best person. I mean, there's no way around that.
Have hope. Can I say something?
Go for it, Kyle. Go for it, man. Go for it.
I just want to jump in right now, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
What you said earlier, it just goes to show you that, you know, a lot of African Americans need to read up on the history. What Dame Dash said, you know, C.R. Patterson and Sons is the only African American owned and operated automobile company in American history. It was passed down by a black man who was born a slave to his son. And it was a 100% Black-owned automobile company in 1910. So Dame Dash saying some bullshit like that kind of really pisses me off. And I don't really like when people put their opinions out there without doing the research, you know. But to your other point, I think African American men today, I mean, I'm just gonna keep it real, man. Who grew up without a father. You know, and Sam knows how I feel about this. They kind of take after some characteristics of their single mother, and some single mothers are able to perform a miracle, you know, being both the father and the mother in the household, but most aren't. Most are not able to do that. They need help from a man to raise a boy. And you know, back in the day, you know, African Americans, you know, they were able to do what they did because the family unit was intact. Like you said, you know, pre-integration, the family unit was intact. You know, the father was at home. He taught the children everything he knew and prepared them for the pitfalls of life. You know, He taught them how to collaborate with other Blacks without getting their feelings hurt and wanting to fight and get back at each other. Again, sorry to say this, a lot of this behavior is very prevalent in angry single mothers in America, and they raise their children to emulate that same behavior. And these young men who have never seen how a man handles conflict, how a man handles a bad situation. You know, I mean, I'm talking from experience. You know, my dad was in my life, but not always. And my single mother was angry. You know, so it's not too late, I think. But you know, maybe we have one or two lost generations because of that, man. You know, we're fresh out of segregation in the U.S., 1 or 2 generations out of segregation in the U.S., and we're learning as fast as we can. You know, also what you were saying about Black talent. I would hire as much Black talent as I could. I'm just gonna keep it real, man. I would hire as much.
But why? So what would be the reason for you to?
I'm explaining. There's a lot of companies out there reaching out to find Black talent, especially out in Silicon Valley and in California. But for some reason, they're just not finding it on the higher level. Yeah. Oh, all right. You know, there might be some Black talent, African American talent lacking on the high level. You know, to saturate Silicon Valley at the highest level and stuff like that. But why are these companies hiring immigrants to work lower level jobs?
Yo, Corey.
You know, should it? Yeah.
Yo,
I was gonna say this, but like that's why I was talking. That's what I was saying in my point before, is that when it comes to something where there's a low level of where there's a large large capability to train people. I'll bring in a ton of people because one of the big issues that we have in the Black community, especially primarily in the United States, is we have a lot of people that are not trained in specific fields. I mean, you agree with that, Corey?
Yeah, but I agree with that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, really getting like.
But why are these companies? Why are these large companies hiring immigrants en masse to work help desk jobs, bro? When you got Blacks and Mexicans in the U.S. that can do that same work,
it's trained
to do that same work,
bro. It's simple economics. It's like I said, pragmatism. I mean, these companies
you can pay them less.
At the end of the day, they only care about making money.
No. I would
hire as many minorities as I could on the lower level.
Wait, Corey. Basically, it's similar to the issue with why there is so much kind of antagonism here in England towards Polish people, because there is kind of a minimum wage that you have to have if you're a citizen of the country and so forth. But what all of these companies do is that you have to pay these kind of English people that sets a minimum wage. But this Polish guy can come in here, do the same job, work the same hours, even more hours for less pay. And they're very much happy to work for that less pay. Whereas those English guys would demand that minimum wage. So
but
for
I mean,
the company, it makes
people,
more sense.
I mean, but people were getting mad at Trump when he was talking about cancel the H-1B visa and stopping that. But I mean, that didn't sound like a bad idea to me. I mean, to be honest, that particular thing that Trump was saying did not sound like a bad idea to me. We need to kind of hold these companies accountable. These companies are two-faced. On one end, they say they want to do everything they can to help the minority community in America, but on the other end, they're hiring immigrants to do like basic menial shit like that you shouldn't do. You know, there's plenty of people in the States that can do that.
Bro,
you know, they don't have a lot of education.
Corey, word, but I'm going to tell you, as somebody who hires people, like so I run the Southwest for my company in terms of like logistics, right? That's what I do. I have to bring in unskilled labor all the time. I pay well above minimum wage, well above double the minimum wage, right? Bro, I can't keep people. And it's crazy because also Amazon's a horrible company to work for. They're down the road. They pay people like $16 an hour to start, plus benefits after you're there for a bit. They can't keep people. People legitimately. I had a guy walk out talking some bullshit about, man, I could be interviewing instead of doing this, manual labor or whatever have you. I can't keep people in the office either.
Why? Why would you say that? Why would you say is the reason?
Being real, I get young. it kills my soul, brother. I get these young cats in here. I try to tell them, like they come in for manual labor, right? A manual labor job that I'll even start them at $15 an hour to lump boxes all day, right? And I tell them straight up, I pull them on the side and I tell them, young brother, go get your forklift certification and I'll help you get it through the company because you get on average $3 more an hour and you sit on your ass all day, right? You're not doing this hard labor shit. You can make more money in that. Plus, when you get your certification, you're not stuck here. You can go to any company that needs a forklift driver. You can go to the docks, which will always need forklift drivers, and make money. You can move from the forklift to the crane. Do you know how much a crane operator fucking makes? A lot. Like a lot.
But are you describing an issue that's a black as a minority issue, or is that with all Americans? All Americans kind of seem like they're kind of too good to work those menial jobs now. You know what I'm saying? And the same thing in the UK, I'm sure.
But that's the point. I have jobs here where I'll start somebody at $20 an hour to do fucking data entry, bro. And I can't keep people because if it's any kind of hard, if it's mentally frustrating or physically frustrating, they bounce. I have cats start.
Wait, MB. So those guys that bounce, is it black people or just people of all races?
Mostly black. And that's what
I would say nationwide is people of all races. I've heard stories like this all over the states.
Nationwide, sure, because if you go to a place up north like Michigan, certain parts of Michigan, like the Upper Peninsula where it's mostly white folks, it would be the same there. It's younger people in general don't want to put the time in. They want a job right out the gate that makes big money, and they get in their feelings when you got to tell them you got to earn your stripes. And here's the thing, I have slightly older, about like 5 or 10 years, right? Employees who started off as temps, worked for me for years, made their way to perm. They're legitimately making, in some cases, $10 more an hour than when they started because they stuck it out and put their time in. And it seems like that's not a lot of money to folks, but a bunch of these folks come from working paycheck to paycheck. They're so used to not having shit that they don't want shit in many cases. And that's the crazy part, right? Like, I've gone out of my way. I've found jobs for these cats, for these younger dudes. I see it a lot with the Mexican brothers too. Like, I've gotten jobs for them outside of my industry with friends, and dudes don't show up and embarrass me. So I'm like, I don't really do that anymore. And then I'm like, yo, you didn't show up. What the hell? You told me you were going. You literally left and told me you were going. You were like, yeah, I thought about it on the way over there and it's just not for me. Okay, but there's a way you go about that, young cat. You don't just not show up. You gotta, there's a way to say, you could have had a frank conversation with me about what your expectations were and how this job didn't meet that. And we would have been like, all right, cool. But you wasted my time, you wasted that guy's time, and you made yourself look like, an ungrateful piece of shit. Now I'm not going to help you anymore. These cats aren't learning that at home. They're not learning a lot at home. Like,
yeah, you're right, man. And I like I said, man, I hate to say it, man, but I think a lot of the, you don't see it as much as you used to back in the 80s and 90s when I was growing up. But the single parents, man, these mothers are out here working 3 jobs. Coming home tired. They don't have time to instill this kind of shit into their kids, man.
Check this. I asked a group of younger guys. I had some lumpers here doing a project for me. I went and I asked them. I said, so let me ask you a question. What are you going to do if a cop pulls you over? What's the first thing you do? They were like, grab my ID and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, nah, bro, like so you haven't turned the radio down. You haven't done anything. I mean, if you ask me, I will. What the fuck? Like, my head exploded at that point. I'm like, you guys haven't even had the talk? That's how your house, that's the house you grew up in? You didn't even have the talk? That's a problem, bro. That's a problem. They're coming out of these households not having the talk, not having expectations put on them. That's the problem, too. It's like, they don't get told that they're supposed to maintain a certain level, so they don't do it. And when somebody like me in the professional world puts their feet to the fire about maintaining a certain professional level, I'm a sellout. I'm a traitor to my race, because I get called that a lot by these types of dudes, right?
Hold up. Let's hear
Am I allowed to jump in here?
I was about to say.
Yeah. Yeah, let's get some other. So is that Rihanna?
Yeah, I'm Rihanna.
Okay, cool. So yeah, look, go for it. So again, the whole thing, notion with black people working together. Would you hire black? What do you think about Corey's points of, is this caused by the kind of single parent dynamic?
Well, I mean, a lack of like mental health in general in our community, is lacking. I wouldn't put it all on a single mother, because, it takes a village to raise a child, not just one person. But I just wanted to point out, first of all, there was only one person that said unequivocally he would definitely hire black people, period.
You're damn right.
There was only one person that said that. I think we're all underestimating the power of white mediocrity. Y'all are bitching and complaining about lazy black men, which is it. I have a trucking company, and it's true. Some of them are lazy, but so are white people. So are Mexican people. Some Asians. Everybody.
That's what about it.
And the difference between us and them is we'll sit here and bitch about our own. They'll hire people who ain't shit and keep them on the payroll. You understand me? Like, and the level, like someone mentioned, like, we don't network correctly, which yes, could be one of the issues, but you guys are underestimating just how much gatekeeping goes down in the upper echelon of white money, period. There's certain circles you cannot even buy your way in as a black person. Unless
you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But
I think we're underestimating those things and not coming up with enough solutions. It just is kind of turning into kind of a negative.
No, but it's not that I underestimated it. I didn't speak on it because it doesn't. What I'm worried about is what the young brothers are doing. I know all of that is
right.
True. I know.
So,
no.
It's true, and you were the only one that said that you would, even with all your issues, that's what you would do. You hire black folks.
Yeah,
and that's what
I gotta teach them. But
that's what it needs to be. Like, it should. All of us should have had the same answer. Like, we're not gonna just hire you because you're black. You're black, and you can do the job.
But I think wait, real quick. See, this is to Rihanna's point, which is why I wanted to bring this up, is that the tribal mentality and the reality of the tribal mentality, because what whiteness has shown us is black excellence is equal to white mediocrity. That you have to work 10 times as hard just for us to accept it, because, as you say again, why should black people have to be super supreme when you know that in many of these companies they will still keep on that useless dude because he's a friend, because he's one of those guys, because racial integration and racial relativity is real. People,
and just speaking on that, I just want to say real quick before I forget, we have been trained to be inclusionary while they've been segregated the entire time. We have been trained to feel bad about saying, I'll hire black people. We've been mentally brainwashed to say, come to the cookout, while they can say, ain't no niggas allowed in my cookout ever.
Are you trying to say that the blacks are the only ones that drinking the Kool-Aid and nobody else is? Because that's the same shit that I said before.
No, of course not. I'm talking about black people because we're talking about black people. No. I'm just saying we've been trained to do the opposite, is all I'm saying. So we need to retrain.
The thing about it, though,
I'm just bring Corey. Wait, real quick. Let me just bring, because I want to let everyone speak to go away. So Corey, since you haven't spoken, Corey White, speak on it.
I would hire the best from the blacks first, from the black pool first. How do you advertise to, how do you solicit that without breaking any sort of labor laws or anything like that. It's beyond me. But if I'm doing small business, take for instance, the fellow. I'm a project manager for a small family-owned solar company, right? So residential and commercial solar panel systems. The owner is a black man. He's mixed, but black nonetheless. And so he and I recently started. Was it 2 weeks ago? We signed our paperwork for LLC to break away from solar, or to complement, excuse me, as a roofing and general contracting business. And so what I've been doing is been talking to young brothers that I know, first, to say, hey man, this is what we're doing. Black-owned business is probably in the first 2 to 3 sentences that when I'm talking to them, to give them some sort of pride in that, because I don't think that, we see enough. I can tell you, growing up in rural southern United States, I didn't see black-owned businesses, where I was from. I had one cat, and we called him Snowman. Old man owned a car wash. And, that was for a long time until, the Goose opened up, which is a little juke joint like Hoppo's or some shit like that. I didn't see black-owned businesses. I seen some barbershops be like, all right, that's cool. But, for a long time, I didn't see it. I had to get out in the world and see it, And so, but anyhow, back to my point about, opening this business here. Yes, I'm going straight for black men and women for that matter, for sales and such. I don't know if they want to hammer some nails, lift some shingles. Cool. Come on. I'm with it, equal opportunity in that regard, but I'm going to go for the black men, the black folks in particular, for those reasons, despite what they got to say. And I agree with everything, little bits and pieces, what everybody had to say. And really what Rihanna said about the whole cookout thing, she's right about that. That's a detriment to us. We've been trained to, take integration fully on our shoulders, while others have not. They've not had to bear that burden, throughout history. And so I think it's time. And I think we'll see a lot of that going on here after this election settles. But I think that we've been kind of pushed into our corner, and it's going to force some positivity to come out of that, which are going to be small black-owned businesses. And while we lost 440,000 or more, across this pandemic in the last 10 months or so, I think that we'll see, once the dust settles a little bit more, I think we'll see a lot more black-owned businesses, and black conglomerates and things like partnerships and things like that, spur on, some new growth in the black business community, too. So to answer the question in short, yes, I want to hire black people first. I don't think that there's any job that anyone else is more qualified to do than we are, so I want to help my own first.
Hey, that point that you just had up about a black guy's worst enemy is another black guy. So I'm gonna tell you guys, but I had a guy who company policy is that you can't hire certain people who may have had an entanglement with law enforcement. That disqualifies a huge swath of black dudes who may have had issues with possession. As we know, possession laws target brothers, ahead of most other groups. What I will say is this: I've had dudes who I've brought into the family, so to speak, because nobody else would really give them a chance to make the money that they can make with me. Only to have those same dudes stab me in the back to white employees and white coworkers because they felt so, and they've told me I felt some kind of way about how you were treating me, so I did X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, what's really funny is that dude that you just tried to start drama with has been in my office trying to get you fired. Loyalty is not something that is big when you hire folks of color as an employer of color. You run into, when you ask more of people who share your skin, the first thing they do is tell you that you're a sellout, because they're so used to getting a pass that when you demand that they be better, to get better, it's looked at as a personal attack in a lot of cases. And
I'm gonna jump in and talk about the homeland. Me and Hope are probably the only two that really understand this. You know how it is back in Nigeria, right? Like, I'm gonna be straight up. Niggas just straight up go at, like, they will sell out their fucking brother. They will sell out their sister. They will sell out their entire fucking family. And I mean, my thing about that is that we talk about all this stuff, like talk about that the black man is the enemy of himself. That's how it is with everybody, though. That's how it is with everybody, with every race. I mean, but in the US, it's nowhere near as bad as it is in Africa. In like Nigeria, like I see my family, like they literally like over a few naira and kobo, they'll pretty much like almost try to kill each other. Like literally fucking try to kill each other. Like set up robberies and stuff like that.
Okay, so you're saying that the whole thing of black people, like the worst enemy of a black person is another black guy. So you don't think that is unique to the black race?
It's not. I mean, look at the election is a good example of that. Every world war in history is a good example of that. I mean, with Asians, I mean, like look at the Chinese versus the Japanese. The Chinese versus the Japanese in World War II. I mean, North and South Korea. I mean, people will go harder than they will go at each other. Now, one thing about it was specifically with us as Black Americans is that because of the way things, our circumstances, because of how we came out of segregation, because of Black Wall Street, it's really affected us pretty badly. I mean, in the terms of that. So, like,
do you think Black people have an issue trusting each other, or African Americans and Black people in general have an issue trusting each other? Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah,
that has to be It has to be a factor because of history, PTSD, psychological trauma, and with the whole pyramid complex of Black people based on society and how the media perpetuates this. Black people are the guys at the bottom. Your Hispanics, your Chinese, your whatsoever are all in the middle of the pit, all trying to climb up to the top of the middle, which is white, blonde, blue eyes, and so forth. But so if you're really at the bottom and you're told you're at the bottom and so on and so forth, there is a tendency to try to do for self and try and be, hey, no, I don't want to be part of being below. I've been accepted. I'm out. Let me run. So
the honest way one thing that I think that we should have done was that we should handle a lot of our business and a lot of our stuff like a lot of these immigrants, like a lot of these people, like the mafia back in the fucking 20s. Like, I mean, shit wasn't that great for them. And in a lot of cases we do. But the problem is though that we do it when people look out for each other like that, it usually ends up being stuff like gang shit. Like people who move weight, who do all that stuff. You'll see people look out for each other there. Obviously though, if like people are wearing the wrong color, they may not look out for those people, but they'll look out for the people who are kinsfolk with that. But
all right, but now we got to elevate that to corporate America, to corporations. I mean, like not just looking out for each other.
Wait. Let me bring in Daniel here because he's not really outspoken. So Daniel, give us your thoughts on this whole discussion thing of like, would you hire Black if you had the opportunity and so forth?
I'm laughing because I'll just assume Half Hopes will know my answer. They're like 10,000%. Like it's what I don't like a lot of these conversations are like inside conversations. So like obviously there needs to be an element of honesty that obviously Black people can and we have to do better, right? But there's a part of me that doesn't like kind of embracing the kind of patholization, whatever that word is, of like Black inferiority, as if like meaning you're hiring Black people means you're taking the negative option. That's not necessarily the case, but it always feels like, yo.
Oh, no. But Daniel, real quick, you have to also be honest because MB is giving you factual evidence of instances that have happened to him where, hey, I've hired you, but you've messed up. So you have to sort of acknowledge that.
Yeah, but
acknowledge it.
That's not a Black person's pathology. That's just a human condition. that people who
Yeah.
are employees
People-
are
everyone
generally
messes up.
lazy.
Everyone messes
That's
up.
not a black thing. That's a human thing.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
Yeah, but no, because here's the thing: certain stereotypes exist for a reason, right? And I'm not saying that only my black employees are a certain way. What I'm telling you is that once, to Rihanna's point earlier, like we're saying, hey, come to the cookout. We do that, right? We invite our kinfolk to the cookout, right? But then once they get there, they don't know how to fucking act. And what's worse, they make it harder for everyone else at the cookout. That's my point.
But that's a generalization. That's saying like
It's
every
not a
so
generalization.
whoa so every black person you've ever hired has been a failure. Is what you're telling me.
Did I say every black person that I hired was a failure?
You said you said stereotypes exist. Stereotypes exist to paint a whole group. So
but stereotypes exist to encompass an entire group, but they don't speak to
so that's
everyone.
why I asked you,
Everybody-
has everybody from the group that you've hired exhibited the traits of the stereotype? And you said no. And that's my point, that it's not a black thing. It's on an individual basis. You want to make it a group thing, and I think that's dumb.
It's not. Oh, so you want to think it's okay? Cool. So
I'm just
you
saying,
think it's
people in Europe look down on workers from Poland, right? Have hope. They look down on workers from
Yeah, the
Romania.
English. Yeah.
You know, and they are, and if those same Polish and Romanians were to go to America, they will be white. So I mean, it's not a black thing, man. I'm kind of with DT on this one. You know, it's I don't think that's what you're saying, MB. I don't think that's what you're saying, bro. I hear what you're saying. You know, just want to let you know. I hear both you guys' point.
But I didn't. But here's the thing: I never said it was a black thing. He's taking it to the ass with that. What I said was, here's my.
You said stereotypes exist for a reason.
Okay.
I didn't say that. You said that.
Clarify.
That's your box. You're in that box that you painted the square. You stand in it.
Wait. Let's MB crystallize it.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
You need to take some of the base out of course. But what I'm saying is this: I never said all black people are a certain way. What I said was, here is my experience when you hire certain people. If you want to take that, if you want to run with it and say you can't say that it's a stereotypes about certain people from certain parts of the country exist for a reason, because people have experienced certain people from certain types.
You see, DT, I now know what MB is saying.
I know what he's saying. I know what he.
You don't know what I'm saying. You're telling me what I'm saying. What I'm telling you is what I'm telling you.
Okay, look. Let me just explain this. Basically, he never said that this is a general, objective, go to Wikipedia stereotype generalization of black people. But I can only go based off my experience. And my experience, I am forming a basis based on what I have experienced. And that is just how I'm going to live my life. So basically, if let's say a dog keeps on pissing on my foot, but when I go to dogs don't piss on my foot. But from my experience, dogs piss on my foot. So I am making a stereotype that every single dog pisses on feet based on my experience. So, but DT, back to your point. So you said you'd hire only black.
That doesn't make it correct, though. I mean,
wait a minute. Okay, if I could just go back and just put some pieces in the puzzle, please. The stereotype of black people is that they are lazy. So when you find a black person who fits the stereotype, it confirms the stereotype. But if a white person exhibits the exact same behavior that a black person does, they aren't painted with the societal stereotype and stigma that they are lazy. It's an individualness for a white person. When a black person does it, it's because they belong to a certain group. That's what I'm saying is stupid.
That's not true.
I agree 100%.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'm with that.
Yep, I agree with that too, bro.
Look at who generally speaking, look at who white people vote for in the United States. They vote for the Republican Party. Why? Because that's the party of individualism. That's their psychology, that the individual is king.
Hold up. Like you said something that was actually absolutely false, because
we're generalizing.
I mean, when it comes to people voting, it's pretty split across when it comes to white people. It's like 50-50.
Is it?
Yes,
It is.
educated,
Yes,
I
it
can
is
look at the stats.
educated whites vote
It's 50
Democrat,
50.
and yes,
I'll
educated
take
white
my
people
L there.
vote
I'll take my L there.
And you just participated in the same thing that you just spoke against, by the way. Amen.
Yeah,
No,
generalization.
I said if you look at the majority. No, but if I have the statistics wrong, I'll take the L. But
Yeah,
so
take an L and have a seat because you just generalized.
I
Amen.
didn't.
Okay, wait. Okay,
You
let's
said white people voted
wait. Let's
no.
get back on the trade. Wait, easy. Let's get back on the trade. So, DT, let's just
Yeah.
get back to the trade. So, you would say you would, if you came into capital, a lot of money, you would look at and hire mainly black people. Even if they were not so good, you would still try to retrain them, hire again, hire again, but you would focus mainly and look first at hiring black people for your business.
Yeah.
I also want to talk to
Overqualified
the guy that keeps talking about like how all the black people suck. We had issues when we were trying to hire for the trucking company too. With of course, we're trying to hire mostly black people when we can. So when we were having issues, but what we found out, it wasn't that they were black; it was our hiring process. We needed to tighten up, and so it's okay to like not just hire them just because they're black, or go after certain types. So maybe you want to only deal with black people with degrees, or black people with that already have their certification, are showing the steps that it takes to get to the forklift and the this and the that. You know what I'm saying? So once we tightened that up and we stopped being overly like charitable with the jobs, you know what I'm saying? Then we start getting a whole new brand of people. Does that make sense?
It does, because a lot of people show up to an interview, and when they see a black man behind the desk, they're like, "I got this shit."
Right.
I don't really do that because
They do,
you know.
and you know what? I'm not even mad about that. But if you gatekeep just a little bit more as far as the skills needed to get hired that they already have. I get you want to get a young cat that doesn't have anything and build them up from the ground up, but maybe you don't do that. Maybe you get somebody who's already kind of showing those steps on their own, taking the initiative on their own, showing some autonomy, because that's the type of person you want to work with. You know what I'm saying? So
Well,
once we
sure.
tighten up our hiring process, then we started getting better candidates. So we can't just keep talking down on what we don't do, what black employees don't do, or what they can't do, or how lazy. Sometimes it's us as the boss. We need to tighten up on who we're hiring.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing, though, right? You touched on a point where you said basically you want to hire an employee who's showing more autonomy and et cetera, et cetera. That's a valid point. My point to you was not that is not what goes on. I was simply, laying out what happens to employees who show that up front, but then once they get into the door, what they're showing is, I'm not going to get fired because X, Y, and Z. I mean, I get lazy employees regardless of their color all the time. I literally, Corey, your mic is hot. I literally have found a dude asleep in one of the trucks before, a white dude, and it was the same situation as before. Like when I canned him, I got a litany of bad words. My point to you is not even just tightening up the hiring process. My point to you is that it's on them too, because when you tell them to tighten up the hiring process, if you have a guy who doesn't meet your criteria up front, and then you tell him, hey, here's how you do X, Y, and Z, you lay the roadmap out for him. What I'm telling you is, a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, they will come back and call you a sellout and tell you that you're asking too much and I don't need this.
I've never been called a sellout before in my life, and I've been employing black people for probably over 15 years. So I think it's important. I think it's important to not internalize anti-blackness and to speak life into our people. You know what I'm saying? And to focus on what we can do as ourselves and not focus on what they're not doing.
Here's the thing: if I tell a young brother to make sure that he comes to work with his pants above his waistline, and I tell him that you need to look the part because people are already going to have a certain idea about who you are based on your skin. And then I walk, and then they say, "All right, boss, thanks for the tip." And then it gets back to me that they're they basically pull a Bill
In
Cosby
my opinion,
response
it
on me.
sounds like you suffer from a lot of anti-blackness, like internalized anti-blackness.
How?
And well, I would just work on that personally.
You got that? So from me telling you a story about where I told a young brother to pull his pants up and be looked at with
Not just
respect.
that. I mean, I've been listening to you talk, I think almost an hour now. And that's what I'm receiving.
We better go to the next topic here.
Yeah. No. Wait. I want to circle back to Tony. I want to circle back to other guys who have not talked. So, Tony, talk to me. So Tony, thoughts on everything so far? Like, I mean, where do you stand at this? Obviously, listening to people for like the past 30, 40 minutes now. Where do you stand?
I mean, back to my original answer, I do think that there just has to be more opportunities rather than a selective few being able to get into the right circles or into the right rooms or getting a seat at the table. I do think that in terms of us always comparing ourselves to other minorities, I don't think that's a fair assessment. Again, with the miseducation of the Negro, this book was written in the 1930s. And he was saying at that time that Asians were getting loans that Black people were being secluded from, even in terms of the GI Bill and Black people being secluded from those different opportunities as well, to even get their college paid for and things of that nature. So there's definitely a wealth gap that I think attributes to what the government has enacted on Black people, whether it be because they're afraid of competition or just plain out racism in general. And I think that in terms of poor Black people being misguided, which I think is where MB is going with that, I think, again, over time, people can wisen up and things of that nature. And I think that Black men in general, I think that there are more who are disadvantaged than those who actually get as many opportunities as, say, Black women in general. And that probably could be part of the reason why he's seeing what he's seeing. I don't think that it's a fair assessment to just put all the blame on single mothers, because again, I mean, I get that they can be upset because I mean, that's a lot to bear to raise these children on your own and work and do all of these things. And to the point of Black people having to be the crux of the United States coming together and integrating and picking the right president. I think that that's a lot to bear for Black women in general. So if there is even that type of anger that has been insinuated in this conversation, I think that it's fair. But I don't think that the way that children are raised nowadays should, be limited to like, oh, the outcome is just because of the Black woman. I still think that there should be ground for Black men to come in and raise their children or to push even harder. But I understand that because of the lack of resources and whatnot, they might not be able to get into the court system to fight for, child custody and rights to actually see their children as much as they want to. So I just think that there's a lot more to unpack in terms of the whole conversation on the state of Black men just being solely because of Black women. I think that, there's a systematic system in general of, like you guys have spoken before about, possession charges and, then their right to votes are being taken away. They're limited in employment. There's a whole other realm of things outside of just the parenting skills of Black women that attribute to why Black men are where they are as a whole.
Okay, a shocking amount of people, we need to move quickly. Tony, a shocking amount of young Black dudes don't even know their rights as a father. So a lot of it also comes in, a lot of what, they don't know that they have a right to petition for visitation. They don't know that they should keep the receipts to prove that they've been an active parent financially with their kid. Like, Tony, you're right. There's a litany of shit that they've never had told to them, right? So they get screwed over by the system, which is slanted hard in many ways toward the mother, especially in a state like Texas, where you're screwed essentially. We have to get to a point where we're not pointing fingers at why they don't have this information. We just provide it to them.
Okay, let's move on to the next topic. Let's move on to the next topic, man. So, light-skinned woman So let me
Y'all
let's
ass finna get cooked.
let's just let's
Get
let,
'em.
let's just start with this. So let me just start with this.
Turkey time.
You see, whenever I watched Halle Berry in films, and whenever Halle Berry was like, no, black, 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 something just never sat right with me, you know? Because as I look at Halle Berry, I'm like, okay, yeah, you're black, but you're not really, are you? And the reason why I went with woman is the whole beauty thing and the whole beauty standard thing. Because Hollywood would always say, okay, we've now done a tick for black representation by picking the quote unquote black woman. But the black woman is 9 times out of 10 a light skinned woman. In a major tentpole movie, big movie, 11 times out of 10, it's a light skinned woman. So that is how they view them taking the black skin box is light skinned woman. You look at R&B lyrics, rap lyrics. Oh, my light skin chick, that light skin thing, that light skin. Everything is always going towards light skin, light skinned. So when I look at light skinned women specifically, let's keep it real. Do they benefit from benefiting from both worlds? Hey, I can be black, Ebonics, black community, and so forth. You can then straighten your hair, go into the white community, and pass for exotic. Alicia Keys. Gosh, I've forgotten the name of this film. There was this film that she was in. I think it's something. Is it 40 Aces or something? This film that she was in. I saw the poster for the film. I thought, oh, this is like a Latino woman or like a white woman that's a bit that's got a bit of a tan. I didn't realize, oh, that's Alicia Keys. The issue is black women will rush to prop up light-skinned women as the face of black beauty. And they'll say that the Halle Berry, the Gugu Mpothoro, the Alicia Keys, this is our representation of beauty. And I think that isn't that problematic when these women could very easily pass for white. In the right lighting, right hairstyle, right clothing, they could pass for white. So how can these be your representation for blackness? And for light-skinned women as well specifically, do you believe that they have a certain arrogance? That they know that they are desired by black men? They know that black women, as much as black women hate them, still aspire to be them, skin bleaching. And they know that if they play their cards right, they can always find their way in white society. And before I come to, I want to confess to Corey White with this. Before I come to this, I just saw my man riffing in the live chat. Beyonce. I watched a music video ages ago with Beyonce and Shakira. I swear to you, I could not tell the difference between both of them. I thought I was watching twins. I thought I was watching the Yin Yang twins. I was like, who's who? But Beyonce is literally Queen Bee, Bayhive, black this, black is beautiful, blah, 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 blah. Have you seen what she looks like? So, Corey White, man. Talk to me, man. Light-skinned women, where do you stand?
Yo, dang, Mike, mute your mic, dude.
No, I could always hear him laughing.
It was just a giggle, dog. I was just like,
okay. Corey White, go for it, man. So where do you stand with the whole light-skinned woman thing, man?
Oh, she's black. I don't have an issue with any of that. I never understood the colorism. I mean, I know where it comes from, paper bag test and all that bullshit, but I've never looked at a light-skinned woman as any black woman as less powerful or impactful or meaningful than a dark-skinned chick, or vice versa, for that matter. I personally, I've never had that. It's hard for me to speak on that one, man, because I mean.
So, okay, but let me ask you this then.
I don't know what you're looking for on that.
So no, don't you feel that light-skinned women, that it's problematic that the black community hold light-skinned women as the face of beauty, when in fact that they can benefiting in both worlds, i.e. the white world and the black world? And a light-skinned beautiful woman will be seen as being better than a dark-skinned beautiful woman. Don't you find that problematic?
Oh well, yeah. I mean, that's the whole, but that's the image in America that the whiter you are, the more beautiful. For we had this conversation a couple days ago with a friend was talking about how the whiteness in America has affected blackness in that regard, and that for a long time beauty was defined in America by who was on the cover of Cosmopolitan or People or whatnot. And it was usually blonde hair, blue eyed, or something like that. You got women like the Dorothy Dandridges of the world, and I can't forget the sister that Betty Boop was based on and whatnot. But that's always been like a bullshit thing to me in America, that light is beautiful, is more beautiful than dark, or they pitting us. That was something I believe that was meant to pit us against one another. I mean, I'm calling bullshit on it. I really don't
That's
like
not just
that.
the U.S., brother. That's everywhere in the America. Everywhere that the colonialism touched is going to have colorism.
You're right. You're right. I mean, you see the bleaching soaps and things like in Jamaica. You see the little videos all the time and stuff. And to be honest with you, fellas, I'm not that well traveled outside the United States. From my perspective, I love to go.
Colorism is everywhere.
But I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. But I mean, staying on topic with it being an issue in Black community and Black America, I think it's some bullshit that was planted in our heads, man. I really do.
Oh, okay. So let me come to Rihanna on this, because I think that she has, she can really speak on this. So, how do you view light-skinned women and sort of their place within the Black community specifically? Do you think that they have a specific kind of power and a specific kind of privilege?
Yeah, definitely. I agree. There's a privilege as far as, if you're light enough to pass or whatever. But I believe it could be used for good, but of course it's not being used for good. So
okay, so your thoughts on Beyonce specifically. Do you think Beyonce is a good role model for like Black women, young Black women? Do you think
yeah,
that
I mean,
she's
we come in all races. Beyonce is a Black woman. It's just that we haven't had good balance. We're going in that direction now. We have a lot more brown skin, dark skin women in the forefront, alongside of Beyonce, on the same stage as Beyonce. So if we had the balance, it wouldn't be so hard,
Wait,
But
what do you mean by
trying to
balance?
deny someone's Blackness just because they're light, it's not going to fix the problem either.
Okay, Hitman, talk to me.
Colorism, it's everywhere, and it's been around for a long time. I mean, this is something that's a effect because of the British Empire, man. And I mean, really, the only way it's something that's not going to go away. I mean, the only real way we can fight it is if we just stick together as a people. We can't. I mean, because at the end of the day, we're gonna have these same discussions like for the next 50 to 100 years. Because I mean, you're still gonna have people like having that implicit bias towards the person who's lighter skinned. I mean, they're basically unless the only way we can do that is if we change our media, if we change our culture. It's going to require a huge culture shift to promote those Black voices and Black faces, primarily those Black faces that are darker.
So, but do you still believe that that Black people still yearn to be white and still have a kind of love affair and infatuation for whiteness and lightness?
Yes, I mean that's what I'm getting at. It's like that. I mean, Asians have it. I mean, because you see this colorism, especially in Asia, even in East Asia, where you're talking about fucking like Chinese and Japanese people who are just as light as the white people. The only difference is that what they'll do is that they'll just change their hair blonde, and like they'll use blonde like contact lenses. It's the same thing, man.
All right. Tony, talk to me about this, man. Talk to me.
So I do think that in general, lightness has become sort of an emblem of power and relativity being relative to, acceptance by the masses. I do think that people like Beyonce or Rihanna's and things of that nature sort of ease into um, bigger audiences because, they're more acceptance. Maybe there's a lack of guilt, listening to people of a lighter complexion. I'll never forget the first time I actually was introduced to Kamala Harris was when Obama had introduced her as one of the most beautiful women, or either one of the most beautiful or the most beautiful women in Congress. Um, and I thought that it was a very pointed comment to make, it being in his position. But I mean, no doubt, I think, this argument goes back to even Zoe Saldana, stepping in to be Nina Simone and, doing like blackface or whatever, rather than, accepting someone who was already dark skinned being put in that place and whatnot. I do think that in general, as someone had previously stated, like your Dorothy Dandridge and all of those folks, again, the ease that they get to get into certain rooms, I think it's all about conformity. I also think that in terms of not just light skin, but even, people who, will perm their hair or add weaves, it's all to sort of grasp the sense of who is in power and to sort of mimic those powerful figures that are in place. And I think that white women in general are a very stronghold in American society. I think that, even in terms of segregation and the slavery even being, propelled even longer than what it was, I think a lot of it had to do with, saving the graces of like the angelic white woman and things of that nature. And I do think it is this internalized hate in general that we have. And I think a good summation of that was the movie on Hulu that just came out called Bad Hair. It is very scary to think of the things that Black women go through in order to either straighten their hair or, do anything to sort of do the opposite of what is natural to them. And even in terms of like T.I.'s wife getting her eyes permanently turned, what is it, blue? But then now he's like this ultimate symbol of, Black power, and let's do Black business. But says nothing.
Wait. Tony, hold on, no. Tony, hold up. Excuse me? T.I. did what?
T.I.'s wife, Tiny, she permanently changed her eye color to blue. It's either blue or gray or something like that. And then his daughter did the same, I think. And these are the people that we hold up into higher positions, and then we wonder why our youth are as confused as they are. I mean, let alone Tiny, his wife. I mean, she's already half white already. But this idea that she would feel compelled to do something to that standard, and then when questioned, just said like, I don't know. She made up some weird comment of like, oh, I just really like the color and that's why I changed it. And I want to say she went to Africa to change it, which is really weird.
I'm gonna say, yo, highlight that comment.
Oh,
Yo,
this
AJ,
is sick, man. This
AJ,
is
real
sick
quick.
world, man.
Highlight that comment you just highlighted about white women are the most privileged group in America, because I want to hit that. Like,
Oh no.
I want to hit that
Wait.
one.
No, we will. Trust me, we'll get it. Let's let everyone go. Let me come to DT with this, man. DT, hit it. Trust me, I remember that. DT.
All right. So you started out with Halle Berry, right? So, firstly, I think was it Neely Fuller who had the quote that like, until you understand the system of white supremacy, everything and anything will only serve to confuse you, right? So, with that being kind of the bedrock of the society in which we exist, you can't really blame Halle Berry or Beyonce or Alicia Keys for being famous necessarily. They have their talent and avenues are open to them given the people who pull the levers of power in society.
Is Halle Berry the most talented actress? Is Halle Berry the most talented actress?
That's not the point. Halle Berry is the actress that Hollywood thinks they can make the most money off of, appealing to the black audience and the white audience at the same time. If you want to look at an act like someone like Viola Davis is 10 times the actress as Halle Berry is, and she's getting opportunities as of recently, I think, as maybe hearts and minds start to change a little bit more and eyes are open in that sense. But we have to look at, this is about making money. This is capitalism. And there's a reason why they want, I don't know, Scarlett Johansson to be some Asian person, or they make a Gods of Egypt movie and we have Gerard Butler as Egyptian princes and things like that, or Moses is white, Charlton Heston as Moses. Like, come on, get the fuck out of here. But they want to make money. And
But
in
it's
making
not
money,
just
they...
money, it's also white supremacy.
What that, yeah, thank you.
Danny's right on the money there, because at the end of the day, people don't realize that they're just trying to get money off of the people they can get the most money off of.
Exactly. So
White supremacy is just a fucking cycle.
So
Cycle of making
money. Building on top of that kind of foundation that we've, I guess, all agreed upon, black people now are living in this system of white supremacy, and they are exposed to the television, the big screen, the small screen, advertisements, magazines, all of these kinds of things, as on top of just the systematic brainwashing of just everyday everything, which puts the white person on top, which puts the white man on top, which puts their aesthetic and standard of beauty at the height of what it means to be beautiful. So then we see weaves. We see, I think in Ghana, there are people taking pills that bleach their babies in the womb. There's just like a whole bunch of madness that happens. If you go to Brazil, there's bleaching. If you go to the Caribbean, there's bleaching. Asia, the same thing. You guys have outlined it all. It's the, I don't know, just the insidious nature of white supremacy. And yeah, in a sense, white people kind of deserve credit in a sense that, yo, you've brainwashed everybody. But it's our job now, once we realize the brainwashing, to kind of decolonize and wash the brain, you know? So that's what I'd say. So don't blame Halle Berry for being famous. She's an actress. She goes in the audition. She reads her lines. Some white executives looking at her like, yo, she's fine. She's not aggressive, or whatever code word they would use for not dark-skinned. And they cast her in the movie. I don't know, she's getting beat by somebody.
And she represents the beauty standards that they want to perpetuate.
Exactly, but that's not her fault.
No, that's...
She's just a participant in the system in which we all participate, unfortunately.
All right, let me come to MB with this.
Well, it's $1 billion industry in India, skin bleaching. You find like $1 billion industry. You find everywhere colonialism is touched. You get this, right? But you know, Halle Berry has set the standard for beauty in Hollywood for a while in terms of what they thought a beautiful black woman was. That's why I said in the comments there, you know, shout out to Terrell Hicks, because that's the sister who is, you know, what they would consider dark and gorgeous as the day is long. But it's something that we all had to deal with. It's something that it's in our culture. We're not getting away from it, and not for a while anyway. Darker women are now starting to be accepted, as was said. The idea of a dark woman being beautiful is coming to the forefront. I don't know, man. I feel like even looking at just the comments right on the side here, there's a lot of animosity between darker skin or brown skin blacks and toward light skin folks. And like I said before, like my pops was like your color, and my mom's was like Sister Rihanna's color. So I came out a happy medium, right? But so like my family is mixed. Half my family is very, very what they call high yellow, damn near clear, and another side is dark. I've seen this shit my whole life. My cousins who are lighter skinned take that shit to the max in terms of like how pro-black they are, overcompensating. And I was saying it to some other brothers, like it's like that one white kid who grew up in the hood. I'm more scared of him because he's going to take it to the next level just to prove he's down, right? And I've seen that a lot. But it is what it is, man. We're as Robert says, black people are not a monolith, right? Like different folks from different sides of the country are going to feel differently about it. I personally I don't think anybody's blackness should be put into question based on the color of their skin. It should be based on their contributions to the cause.
Okay.
That's just me.
So before I come to CA with this, shout out to Beerto Clumsman for the dub. Says that don't forget, one drop rule was introduced by the Triple K. Did these dudes introduce the one drop rule?
No.
Yeah, I was going to say. I don't
Yeah,
think
no, that wasn't the KKK.
Yeah, it was. Because that was during Jim Crow era. But look, let me just say this: like, me and Danny, we go back and forth this, and he has explained this to me, and I sort of accept this. And other of my mixed race friends have explained this to me. But still, I'm sorry, man. That one drop rule is the dumbest thing I've ever heard
it's
in
stupid.
my life.
It's stupid.
And what that one drop rule is, the reason why it pisses me off, it shows the arrogance and the elitist nature of this whole white supremacy. An inkling of anything that isn't white, you are therefore fully that other thing. That reeks of the most insidious, evil, sickening.
It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist to delineate blackness more than it exists to safeguard whiteness.
Yeah,
exactly.
So that black people use it is kind of just them accepting, or us accepting, I suppose, just the rules and regulations that have been set up from, I don't know, centuries ago.
But what did a law in Mississippi that was like 132nd or something like that?
They went hella back, like.
I think this was up into the 50s or the 60s that there was a law in Mississippi that if you were 132nd black, that you were considered Negro. Wow. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. It was in Mississippi, Alabama, 1-2.
You got a lot of pissed off white boys.
Bro,
and that's where I can't always exclude our biracial people, because they do go through a lot of similar, not the same, but similar, you know? So we can't just be like, oh, well, you're not black, you're over there. They're black biracial. They have some of the same struggles, if not the same, depending on their phenotype. So it's like stupid to just be like, well, mixed people are their own race. Well, mixed with what though? Because an Asian person mixed with white is not having the same experience as a black woman who's mixed with black and white.
This is what I try to tell half hope all the time, that race isn't about genotype, meaning like the actual DNA that's in your body. It's about phenotype, meaning what you look like.
And what society thinks you look like and how they act towards it.
I mean, because we got two people I think that are mixed. I mean, Rihanna, you're mixed, right?
I'm not mixed. I have 2 black parents and 4 black grandparents. That's why I'm saying, like, we can't just. I get told I'm not black all the time, and I have all black people in my family.
I got you. I got you on that. But I know Danny.
No. Okay, wait. Let me come to say this. But I say this is why I just
said real quick.
That's whole light skin thing, man.
I was gonna say, if you look like Meghan Markle, but if you look like someone like Meghan Markle, I mean, you're talking people that can literally fucking pass. I mean, so like they're not.
Like, look at Ebony K. Williams. Ebony K. Williams is black, and she looks mixed. So I mean, exactly. Like black comes in all different.
Look at the little girl on Blackish. She looks black, but she's mixed. So it's like it goes by what society thinks you are.
But it also comes down to how you're treated.
Exactly. That's why I said it can be used for good. Like, take my grandfather, for example. He passed for white. So what he did is saved his family, moved up north. He was able to open businesses because they thought he was white, and he employed black people. That's what we should be doing with the privilege that we have. But instead, it's so much infighting per usual. And I'm not blaming that on black people, because that is by design. It's not our fault. It's by design.
Crabs in a barrel.
But we could be using this to benefit us. Kind of like a pirate. Let's go get some of that privilege and bring it back to the rest of us.
All right, so let me come to CA with this, man. So CA, thoughts on this, man? CA.
Yeah, I mean, but I gotta say, you gotta, first of all, like everybody said, being a dead horse already, colorism is the name of the game with this one. The racial caste system that was put in place the moment those European settlers left Europe and noticed that the whole fucking world was melanated. They had to come up with some kind of system, because they're kind of outnumbered. There's more melanated people in the world than white people. It's fact. It's still that way, and it was definitely that way 400 years ago. So, they kind of, they were outnumbered. They kind of had to come up with this racial caste system, and it's kind of been in place since the beginning. It wasn't just the British; it was the Portuguese, it was the Spanish. A lot of different colonial powers. But the idea, I gotta say, the idea of what blackness looks like is changing because of the diaspora, right? You can't really say black looks a certain way, and if it doesn't look this way, then it's not black. You got African of descent people in the Americas, in Europe, in Asia, all over the place. And they're still African, man. They're still melanated, but they just might not look like you and me. But they're, the diaspora kind of forced us to kind of like open up what it means to look like what it means to be a black person, look like a black person. I would say white, black, or light-skinned women or mixed race, biracial women who date white men kind of experience a lot of shit as well. I've noticed, she might go in expecting everything to be cool and not know that she's going to have beef with the guy's mother and the guy's sister, and also have to deal with all the passive aggressive dumb comments that the ignorant white guy's possibly saying to her about that. Because I've dated biracial girls who told me that I'm done dating white guys. Like the kind of shit that they say is ridiculous. Like I can't even sleep with them because they're so ignorant, and their families too. And so these women, to us, they look white or biracial or stuff like that. But in the white world, they're not not white. They're black. So I don't know, man. Light skinned women are on TV everywhere. Like you go to a country with black people, and you're gonna see light skinned women on TV. Same, in Latin America, probably in Africa too. You probably have a lot of light skinned women on TV in Africa. And I mean, like I said, man, everywhere colonialism touched is that's the way it is. How do you get rid of that?
How do you get rid of that? Because it is a mentality and a psychology. Because I remember, like, when I was in Nigeria, I think I was telling this to DT, me and my brother, we looked at this lady and we're like, did she have like a skin condition or something? Because the skin bleaching went so bad, it looked like if she had like a skin condition because she tried to lighten her skin so much. So once you're going to the Africa, the motherland, and there are women who are still skin bleached because they feel the lighter they are, the more desirable they will be. That is a problem. So and for me, it is, which is why it comes back to, I don't know who said it, media. Media is very important because if you have your media house and you're perpetuating that dark skin is beautiful, dark skin, light skin, medium skin, and there are all these shades that are seen as queens, rulers, the desirable woman, and so forth, then that is what begins to change the mentality. But if you're viewing all the films, all the adverts, all the promotional material, and the model, the desirable woman, the woman who is beautiful is always light skinned, that's just going to just continue to erode in your mind. So light skin, skin bleach. So it's like that's the issue. So let me bring in your boy. Let me bring in your boy Robert in here. Robert, if your mic is working, yeah, there you go.
Well, thank you. Well, I can just carefully contribute my perspective from Europe, and particularly in Germany. I have a lot of American friends, and I really deeply enjoy all those fruitful discussions. I think it's indispensably important so that we can really expand our horizons. I remember I was just telephoning with a friend from Chicago who is originally Indian and who refuses to sunbathe because he is concerned that his skin might turn darker. He's living in an exclusively white neighborhood full of very educated people. He is a scientist himself, and he still senses a lot of discriminatory demeanor, which is of course utterly shameful, and I felt so sorry for him. And I just told Corey, as a German person, I just realized when I learned about Ruby Bridges' book, This Is Your Time, that it's not even 60 years ago, Civil Rights Act, and that people had to undergo this. I have another friend who is in her 70s, and she was not allowed to drink from a white faucet in the mid-60s. Those impressions for me, even though Germany has its own very sinister chapter of history, I do remember from old movies, even in the late 40s and early 50s, we had a lot of African-American artists on the radio and in movies. They were fully accepted, like Ella Fitzgerald and Nat King Cole and so on. So I'm proud that we were a little earlier with this. And I think every day we all need to start with ourselves to improve our horizon and to really diminish the own perpetuated indoctrination with all those stereotypes which are never to be generalized. And that's a daily challenge. I guess it never stops. And I'm very proud to participate in this discussion tonight because I learn a lot, and I'm thankful to be included. Thank you.
Oh, no. I think, no, as getting Robert, I mean, it's great to even have you on here. But it's like, let me put something out there, just as we sort of round off the final half hour here. Let me just put something out here and just see what you guys think. This is because for me, I always like to keep things real. I like to keep things very real here. Because I think what Robert says is great, and it is very kind of a positive viewpoint and so forth. But for me, it's never going to happen. And again, this is not to diminish what Robert has said, because I think if we have more people who think like that, I think it's how we're going to move forward. But the key thing here is that racism is never going to die. That's never happening. A white person will never in their life see another black person as their equal. It's never happening. Never happening. Anybody that thinks that there was ever going to be a day white people as a whole will accept black person as an equal, you're insane. And even my man here, Reef, said this to me, because we always talk about this, because Reef said that white superiority, they need this. So think of it. You want a mediocre white man to lose the power of saying, even if I am poor and destitute, I am still better than a successful black man. You want them to lose that? Even the liberal, the white liberal that you think is your friend, oh, black man, I help in everything. In the back of their mind, I am still better than you. And I'm just humoring you by helping you. But the back of my mind, you're not equal to me. Oh, I'll help you. I'll fight for you. I will march for you. But I'm still better than you. You are not equal to me. And we will never see a period, at least in our lifetime, where we are half on par and we are the same as black people. Well, I've always said this. And it goes back to something that we said before. You have a choice. Either you go to war to try to rule, to break the system, or you create another system. You fighting a war in which you want equality in this system, you will lose. That's never happening. You're fighting a futile war because they've held this for so long and they've been so careful in carefully orchestrating it in controlling your mind, your psychology, and systematically constructing this pyramid of excellence that's something that has been built for hundreds of years to just go ahead and just think that, oh, one day, hey, we're all equal. No, because they need this. So let me come to Tony first with this, man. Tony, so do you see a scenario in your lifetime, and then this will be our last thing, in your lifetime where black people and white people can see each other as equals?
I personally don't think that I'll see it in my lifetime. I do believe that on some levels we'll get closer to it, but I honestly think that that's what my biggest problem is with this entire election, is this idea or this illusion that if we just get rid of Trump, there will be no more racism and we'll be back to this utopia, as if there was ever a utopia to begin with. And even this sudden forgiveness of like Joe Biden's past history, as if he wasn't embedded in all of this and as if he wasn't, created by the establishment or allowed to propel to the levels that he has been because of racism or racist policies that he's done in the past. And I think that if we continue to elect certain politicians, if we continue to propel, certain media figures who are, continuing or perpetuating some of these ideas. I mean, I even think about like, how long did Oprah wear contacts, green contacts, before she started just wearing her regular eyes? Like, even these little intricate things embedded within our society are placed there to uphold this racist nature in general. And I think that even in a sense, I think Like that's part of why America needed Obama so bad, right? So that it could look like or appear as though we have arrived at some level. And even to an extent, that's why they need Kamala and this imaging of like her and Ruby Bridges and, oh, look, Black woman, you're so powerful. Now you're vice president. Like I really think that until American society is real with itself, I don't, and you know what? I don't even think that it's American society as a whole. I think many Black people in their homes have these very real conversations, or at least in their psyche know what it is. And I think that it, unfortunately, is white people that we have to convince. And unfortunately, you know, just like, you know, bringing the country together, it's on our shoulders to convince other people of the way that they're thinking is backwards or is wrong or whatever. And even the notion, you know, earlier when we were talking about like, you know, can Black people be successful in business and all that? We've already proved that we are equal. And time again, whether we become president, vice president, get as big as Oprah, I don't think that there's any convincing at this point. So no, I don't think that in my lifetime that I'll see it.
All right, so let me just, before I come to Corey White for this, shout out to Natsa for the dub, man. It says, even in my family, the subconsciously sometimes say, nah, she's too dark, and often base beauty on how light you are. We've got it built in big insecurity. And you want to go even deep into that, there is I think it was by Bill Duke, there is a short film to do with dolls. So they get a bunch of these young Black girls and they put these dolls all on this table. And there's a Black doll, there's a white doll. And I think almost 9 times out of 10, the Black girls will always choose the white doll, and ask them why. Because naturally, they think that the white doll is more beautiful. These are kids who are like 4, 5, 6. So if it's that psychology is starting that early of naturally, hey, whiter is better, you know that you're dealing with something that is so far ingrained into society that's going to take a long time to completely quench it out, man. So, Corey Whiteman, do you think in your lifetime we'll see equality between Blacks and whites?
Not in our lifetime. I think we'll start to see it. I will agree with whoever, it might have been you that said, you know, or no, maybe it was Tony said something about, you know, Obama was kind of like a soft arrival, right? Kind of a pregame for Black folks. I think until white people concede some of their supremacy, some of the power that they have, you know, specifically in America, obviously the whole world too, but I don't think until you see a dark-skinned brother as president, or, you know, in a position of power like that, like the president, which I don't know what else is like that, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that we'll ever get along, because you'll always have Black folks that harbor, you know, ill will toward white folks too. You know, I mean, that kind of works both ways a little bit in my eyes. So no, not in our lifetime, but I think it's possible. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's also the thought that too, that once, you know, the races mix to a point to where everybody's brown, then
which is my theory, which that was my brother's theory, that's 100, 200 years, everybody's going to be mixed. But whites are going to try to fight that. But my theory is that in a few hundred years, everyone's just going to be mixed. So everyone's going to have like a bit of seasoning in them. So,
well, isn't it true that genetically they are easier wiped out than we are?
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah. So I mean, it don't take but, you know, one mixed child to wipe out a white man.
All right. What's it called? Hitman. Hitman.
Okay. As far as equality, I don't think it's going to be ever seen in any time in human history. Because, and here's the reason why, because in human history, there's never been a time where people have ever thought of themselves as equal to each other. Even when people are the same color, it'll be some bullshit like religion, class, money, race, so on, so forth. Whatever you believe. I mean, it could be over a fucking comic book. I mean, like someone likes DC, another guy likes Marvel. People will go to war over that. And it's going to, and the difference isn't going to be, it may end up being something where, yes, they may not look at rate, may not look at color so much. They'll always look at color though, because color is easy. It's the first thing you see when you look at a person. So that's not gonna change. I mean, even if things happen, but at the end of the day, you can't legislate love. You can never do that. You never control how somebody thinks. You can make them pay for doing bad actions because of your race, but you can't make a person love you. So like, I mean, all this stuff with equality, I mean, we just got to keep pushing. But I mean, at the end of the day, we'll never get there. We'll get close, but we'll never get there.
Well, a certain aspect of it too is a human condition. Kind of to touch on what you were saying, it's kind of a human condition. Equality, racism is a bit of a human condition when you get to that level, I think.
Well, also can I just add? Thomas Sowell said that you don't even see equality in families, right? I mean, you're talking about true equality. You don't like older siblings are statistically smarter than their younger siblings. I mean, you don't even see equality within brothers and sisters. So how are we ever going to expect to see equality between the races? You know, and until Have Hope said we're all just one shade of beige.
Yes. Okay. So in your view, you don't see a point where not even complete equality, but sort of, okay, all right, and black man, you're a human just like me. We are all part of the human race.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep with the somber, pessimistic tone of the group here and say no. I would say, like, speaking from white Americans, I would say white American men especially will never accept a situation where they are not eating first. And I'm not talking literally about eating. I'm saying metaphorically. They will never accept a situation where they're not eating first. Any minority.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
They'll never have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Like when the thing, like that's another thing too, because people think that if somebody's going to lose their power, that when they lose their power, they're actually going to have a choice. But at the end of the day, when somebody loses their power, it's usually a force of nature. And one thing you can never fight is nature.
Possibly, but I mean that's not going to be in our lifetime. In our lifetime, any minority that's kind of okay and willing to accept that, I think the white dude is going to ride with them. I mean, they're not going to see them as an equal because they're not going to rock the boat. They're going to let the white guy eat first and just be happy with whatever's left over. If a minority wants to stand up on his own and demand to eat first, then there's going to be problems. So I think that's what we're going to be seeing in the future, and we're just going to be seeing a slow diminishment of the power that they can wield over that. I would say, being objective at the same time, if white American men were truly like this, why would they allow minorities in the U.S. to get to that point? Are they really so dumb as to allow their own downfall? Or are they just out of ideas, or they just have no choice but to give black people a lick? I don't know. I mean, like, which one is it, right? So, but as far as ever being seen as equal, I mean, like I said, brothers and sisters don't see each other as equal. So, I mean, like, I don't think there'll ever be true equality in the world, but I do think we'll get to a point where white American men will respect, or white men will respect black men. And it's going to be up to us to not settle for the okie doke like we used to, to demand respect and do something with that respect.
All right, MB.
Well, I feel like it's tribalism, so I don't know that we'll ever achieve true equality, because people don't want to achieve true equality for the same reason that Corey was just mentioning about they want to eat first, because everyone's gonna, I mean, shit, we're having a conversation earlier about whether or not we hire blacks first. Never did we really talk about whether they were more or less qualified for the other people who might have actually made us more money. So, I mean, there's that. No, I think humans are too tribal for us to ever see equality in our lifetimes. There isn't, I mean, what is really equality even? And to the point that other Corey made earlier is white birth rates are down. So they're not, I mean, within 2 generations, they will no longer be the majority, is what they're projecting. So they're almost fucking extinct. If you really think about it, they're going extinct. They're going extinct because they spent more time like achieving dominance than fucking. While
that's why I say nature. That's why I said nature. That's why I said, like, if the thing that's going to defeat white society or white supremacy is nature. You can never beat nature.
Nope. Nature and time are fucking undefeated. And right now, their birth rates are down. Black and Hispanics are gonna surpass them inside of 2 generations. At least in this country. Will they maintain power? Probably. A lot of us are still on the slave mentality. But who knows? We'll see. They'll probably let this bitch burn down before they lose control, though.
So actually, before I come to DT, this is really interesting. So from Sam Jovi, thank you for the dub, man. Thank you for the dub. In 1450, Gomez de Zurara, under the auspices of the Portuguese king, wrote the first book about race that started the African slave labor. This made it okay for whites to watch while they profited. And I just looked up this whole. So let me just do a quick read. This is interesting. So Ibrahim Zen stressed that Zurara, commissioned by Henry the Navigator of Portugal, was the first to characterize people of African descent as inferior and to justify slavery as salvation, thus starting the systemic racism that has spread through the Western world. Zurara describes sub-Saharan Africans as heathens in need of religious and civil salvation. And in Nigeria, what do we still have in 2020? A whole church full of black people bowing down to a white, blue-eyed Jesus. DT, talk to me.
I'm like, how do I it's interesting though that you that phrase had systemic racism, because while I was hearing people talk, I thought of Stokely Carmichael, aka Kwame Ture, who was one of the first to use institutionalized racism. And just quickly, Hitman's point where he was like, you can't make someone love you? Yeah, you can, kind of. It's called slave mentality. It's called Stockholm syndrome, if you want to make it blunt. Like, you can warp someone's thinking into like liking you, or at least hating themselves to where they see you as a better option.
That's called
It's also called religion.
That's called
It's also called
gaslighting.
religion.
That's called gaslighting. That's what it's called. I mean, because like on your point of making do you know how long it takes to condition somebody to that level? It takes generations. Because I mean, the whole slavery thing, the whole religion thing, that took generations. Because they basically took people who defect. Because even during the slavery times, you're talking about people who were initially resisted. They were getting killed. Then I mean, like the adults. I mean, then the adults who accepted it, they just accepted it, part of Stockholm syndrome. And after that, their children were the ones that actually internally accepted it. If you really think about it.
So 3 generations, maybe. That's still pretty quick, though. But anyway, for Have Hope's question, like, I don't really care what white people do, but by and large, I think like waiting on white people to change their mind about black people is like waiting for an apple tree when you haven't planted an apple seed. Like, it's you can sit there all you want, but nothing's coming out of the ground. So I think the only way really that like black people can get free and then get some form of equality is with organization, and then using that organization to harness power. So for me, equality isn't really the mission. Power is the mission. Because even if white people never see black people as equal, there has to be a buffer or a consequence for them not treating you in the way that you want to be treated. And for that, you need organization and you need black power. So
I agree.
So for me, it's, will we see black power in my lifetime? I hope so. And I suppose that's the work for all of us. But again, my mind went right to Stokely Carmichael in, what was it, Greenville, Mississippi in 1967 or whenever it was. Like, black power is what we need. We don't need equality necessarily. Like, we're just, again, waiting on white people. You can wait 10,000 years, but you can't work on their time schedule. You're on mute, by the way.
What does black power look like to you, though?
Black power is the organized masses of black people around a goal, which is freedom.
I mean, now let me talk about Black Power here, because you know where you were saying forcing people to love you. That was an emphasis of power. The only reason why we can't do that is because we haven't had that level of power. Because they were doing that by putting people to the gun. I mean, you're basically putting someone at gunpoint, telling them, "Hey, fucking do it or die," and that's literally what it is. And like I said, the initial generation that got it didn't love. Now that's exact. Now I think what you said right there with Black Power is exactly the point. We shouldn't be asking for equality. We shouldn't be waiting on anybody. It should be we should be getting our money straight, our infrastructure straight, our property straight, our land straight, and then after that, whatever happens.
Okay, sorry for me. But sorry to DT. See, it goes back to the point that I made, is that you have two choices. Either you go to war to try to destroy that system. Are you willing to die by going to war to destroy the system, or you create your own system? Which is why
both of those are kind of the same thing.
No, it's not.
But I mean, do you have to create a new country, or can you create a system within a system every other minority does?
What DT is saying is closer to creating your own system. In terms of Black Power, you congregate and create something where you're supporting each other, rather than how can I succeed within this white paradigm? And I need to sort of play by your rules and listen to what you have to do and sort of tick your check boxes to succeed in your paradigm. No, you have to now create. No, but see, that's the whole thing. Not about succeeding in the paradigm. To now be respected and now have your own guys and to be put at the very top of that, whites won't allow it because no, this is ours. Okay, you can play along, but you're not going to have the same kind of ownership that we do. Heck no.
Well, see, look,
if you want it, you're going to have to try and kill us.
Have hope. There's a reason why, even though they don't like each other, America has like a tacit respect or just an assumed respect for the Chinese, right? Because the Chinese are organized. Like, they have one of the largest armies in the world. They run their business in the way that, they might take advantage of rules and tariffs and this and that, but they're an organized force. So you might not get along, you might not respect them as people, but they're an organized force to where that if you do step out of pocket, there are consequences when you deal with them. There's a reason why Russia and the United States had beef for years, but none of them did anything to each other. Why? Because there was mutually ensured destruction in some ways. You realize if we step out of pocket with them, they will get in pocket with us. When you come to the African continent or just the African diaspora in general, what are the consequences for fucking with black people? Because of the lack of organization, which they cause, so, good chess playing from them. But if there's no consequences, somebody can do whatever they want to you. So the point is organization leading to power, then that power being a buffer from whatever attack white supremacy feels like inflicting on people. But obviously that's big work. So when you say in our lifetime, probably not. But you got to get the ball rolling at some point, and people in the past have started it, and it's up to us to keep it rolling.
The other thing too, to add on that, is that when you're talking about creating your own system, for us people in the diaspora, because everybody here is in the diaspora, we can't create our own system. We have to just create a system within a system, like Asian Americans, like the Jews, pretty much like that. I think where we have to. Go ahead, Tony.
So while I was thinking of it, I think that the system that we are currently talking about is just the general nature of capitalism in general, which the idea behind it is just losers and winners. And if we continue that path, there's always going to be someone at the bottom. So this idea of, equality, to MB's point, like, we would definitely have to define it outside of the normal symbolic gestures that we have sort of conformed to. And I think that the biggest sign as to whether we're actually going to move towards a more equal society is the way that the Dems disavowed Bernie Sanders. I mean, ultimately what he was trying to do was to create this equal distribution of wealth, this shared wealth in general. So the fact that, that they go against him or even AOC, as crazy as their ideas are in general, I don't think that those who are in power want to even share that type of wealth. And we see that by the different politicians that are coming up, primarily those who are of like a Bernie's type mind frame. And I also wanted to point out, as an ADOS person, even this idea of the browning of America and like whites are going to have no choice but to, get down with the way that we're thinking or to allow us to get some type of power. I think all that's going to do is create a further deference of America even addressing its part and systematically doing what it did. America got its wealth off of the backs of Black bodies in general. And until that is addressed, I don't think that America will ever see any type of equality. I don't care if we get a president, another Black president, or 5 different Black presidents. The fact that Black people started at the lower totem pole, that has to be addressed economically. And again, we see that time and time again with segregation, with Jim Crow, and even the Reconstruction era, the way that the government allowed white supremacy to come in and just totally disrupt Black people when they were, having higher literacy rates and becoming strong business people. I mean, we forget that even the larger amount of people that were being lynched during, the early 1900s were businessmen. So even this idea of, oh, well, we just don't have businessmen or we don't have the resources or whatever, that was taken away from us by the government in and of itself. And I do agree that over the diaspora, different white nations will have to address, people that they've enslaved or colonized over time. But as for America in and of itself, I could care less how much it browns and, Black people get up there. We'll still see the same type of tokenism that we see with an Obama or a Kamala or even an Oprah, these singular figures that actually get close enough to or get in close proximity to white power and wealth rather than addressing the whole.
Okay, so
real quick, can we talk about, my fear is the fastest growing group in America is Hispanics, right? A shocking number of them voted for Donald Trump. So my fear is that we're trading off one group that doesn't really jive with us for another group that doesn't really jive with us. Because if we don't do like DT says and organize whatever have you, it's going to be a bunch of individuals trying to fight a big monster. You know what I mean? That kind of that freaks me out a bit, just because I feel like it's just the complexion is changing, but it's going to be the same shit.
Well, it's just because the skin changes doesn't mean the ideas change, right? So
well, yeah, but you would think that it's a completely different group of people, different cultures. Their experience is different. Mind you, what we found in exit polls was that it wasn't necessarily Hispanics in general, but Hispanics with wealth and power who were voting for Trump predominantly.
Look at Florida, like the white Cubans.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
but they're white. Like
the other thing too, it's not just whiteness either. It's also like another thing that people don't talk. We really need to focus on, which is the whole money aspect of racism.
Class, yeah.
And because how it's cream. Cash rules everything around me. Like racism was built off of money. The other thing too is that those white Cubans, not only was it that they hated fucking Black people and they hated hated dark people, but they also hated communism. Because the thing about it is that and this is why I got an issue with some far lefties and even some of these Black Lives Matter types that say that they're trained Marxists, because at the end of the day, that's not going to bring us up. That's not going to completely bring us up.
Let's just take some few questions before we just.
Can I make one last point though? Have hope.
Oh, go for it.
So the guys were talking about, as white birth rates decline and white people become less on the planet, then in theory there's an opening for the melanated people of the world to kind of take advantage of that. And my mind goes to South Africa during the apartheid regime, right? You had a whole country of millions and millions of indigenous Black people ruled by a handful of African, formerly Dutch white people, right? So if, kind of to Tony's point, even if you change the politicians and the politicians become brown, black, if they're white people in blackface who carry on or what would that be? Yeah, if they're black people in whiteface, almost like that, it's not going to change the conditions for the everyday person on the ground. So then again, it would need the people to organize.
It's not about this.
Right. So
it's not about numbers. It's about this.
You could put 10,000 Obamas in a line, but if they still have the mentality of every white president that came before them, the same systems will continue to work in favor of the people that it's always worked for, which are, to Hitman's point, the rich. And the rich, for whatever reason, we know the reasons, tend to be not black.
Okay, so look, let's just take a few questions and just get out of here, just to sort of see what the streets are saying. So anybody can jump in on this one. Do you think BLM do a good job speaking for black people?
They're good at getting attention.
Are they good for speaking for black people?
That's what I think they're positive. That's the only positive I really think.
Whether or not the message is constructive, or see, again, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, there are some things of their platform that I think are positive. There are some that I think aren't too positive. The whole, like, we're not with the nuclear family thing. I don't know how constructive that really is in the long run. I don't think it is. But there are other parts of their platform, with just like, police brutality and things of the sort, that you do probably need to organize around. And if it just stokes the mind of the general black person who's just on Twitter or Instagram that doesn't think of this thing at all, and now they're being inundated with Black Lives Matter, hey, what is this? Oh, and they look into it, maybe that could be a positive, but I'm sure Hitman will take it.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too, when you talk, is that when you look at the positivity, is that they were able to gather, in the summer, they were able to gather these large movements of people, black, white, brown, whatever, and the other thing though, even though I don't like the fact that they're a puppet for the fucking Democratic Party in the United States, they were able to gather a lot of money. If they were able to gather that much money and turn it back and actually direct it back at the black community in tangible things, there's no limit of what they could have fucking done for us. But they gave that to the fucking presidential campaign for Biden. We all know that shit.
All right, so Beato Klum, thank you for the dub. Plus 80% of Asians vote for Biden. Are they allies? Heck no.
No. Well, you know what? It would be interesting. Did 80% of those Asians have conversations, if those numbers are true? Did they have conversations with Biden before he was elected or afterwards? Because if Asians are just voting for Joe Biden just because, then perhaps maybe they can be allies. But if they have their own strings that they want pulled, and then they funded Biden and said, we will vote as a block, we'll give you X amount of votes in, I don't know, a state like, I don't know, Arizona or Georgia or wherever the case may be, one of those swing states, perhaps I'll agree that it's no. So you'd have to know, like, how did Asians vote and what was their strategy, rather than just, we won't vote for Trump because he's this and that. So there's only one other option for us.
The thing also, because when you talk about Biden versus Trump, we talk a lot about the demographics by race, but there was a lot of demographics by which you would normally think would vote for Trump that didn't really vote for Trump. Give you an example, military. I think like military was like, that Biden and Trump were split right in the middle, which is like the first time in a long time that military, especially because military tends to be more conservative, like it was 50-50 this time. And it was because of some shit that Trump said about the military and military leaders that led to that. On top of that, even whites, there were like college educated whites were like, I think it was like a 60-40 split in favor of Biden for college educated whites. There was a lot of oddities, but even with the black community, like Trump, even though Trump got 10%, Trump got 10% of the black vote overall, but then again, he got a lot more of the black vote than any Republican president has in history.
So I would just add that I don't believe that a vote for a particular president makes you automatically an ally. To you guys' point, I think that people vote, strategically for different reasons and purposes. Who knows, what industries or lobbyists who are backing Biden that Asians will then, sort of gain more wealth in general. And I think, I just think that the qualifications to being an ally just have to be a bit stronger than just voting for Biden off of the sense that he brings decency or more prestigious, aspects to the presidency.
I think it also is maybe key to point out that the majority of Asian Americans, I'd say, live in states that are already decided. So you look at someplace like Hawaii or Washington. California probably has the largest, maybe New Jersey or New York.
California is the highest Asian population in the U.S.
Yeah, and California is a fait accompli. Like there's no real, what tangibles can you get if you vote as a block of Asians in California, considering
it's not for the presidential, but it's more like the down votes on the senators and
right.
So let's just round off these questions and then we can answer. So from Natsa, thank you for the dope, who says, in our countries in Africa, we tend to call for these white countries when we face adversity and make them look like heroes when they've ruined us. See, on that's what I've always said about Africa, and me and my brother have a discussion about this, is 100%, of course they fucked over a lot of these countries. Me and DC, we even did the whole history of Nigeria and the one white dude who there is literally a white dude who messed up Nigeria. I don't care what his name is, as my brother always says to us,
Frederick Ludgard.
It's like, okay, that happened, but there are still things that you can do that can still help yourself. You are messing up right now. There are things that you could do to actually put yourself in a good position where you don't even need to help whites. You don't even need to look to the help of white people. Nigeria is an oil-producing country. They produce oil. Someone put out something on Twitter that Nigeria have the same GDP as Norway, but Norway are doing far better than Nigeria. And I
think you need to look at it deeper.
Norway has way less people, though.
The thing about it is that you have the overall, because when you look at GDP, it's overall GDP and you have GDP per capita. Because if you look at the overall GDP of Nigeria, it has a higher GDP than a lot of countries in the world, but the GDP per capita, because of a lot of things, is a lot lower. When you compare the overall GDP, we have Nigeria is a GDP higher than Poland, higher than Ukraine, a lot of European countries, a lot of countries that would be considered second world would be considered at that second tier of countries. But when you look at at the per capita GDP, it's right at the bottom. It's in the bottom third because of that. Because of the population, because of the wealth gap between rich and poor. It's crazy. And then on top of this, looking at countries in Africa tending to call for white countries when we face adversity. The big reason why is because we're not coming up, is because a lot of these governors, which I feel governors and presidents of these countries, which I feel a lot of them, we should just slap them in the face for being so corrupt. Yeah, they think they look for the easy way out for a lot of solutions. And when they get changed out, it ends up being the same thing over again. One guy just tries to take as much money from the government as he can. The deal in Nigeria, it's governors mainly get those jobs because it's the easiest way to get tons of money.
Bro, every 3 years they find 500 million that Abacha stashed in some nondescript bank account in the Seychelles or the Bahamas or wherever the hell.
But basically, as I've spoken to friends of mine in Nigeria who said that they're going into politics because you can make money. Yeah. Think about that. I said they're going into politics because this is the best way to make a lot of money. That's messed up. So, from this, how would black power work in a white world?
The same way that Jewish power works in a white world, the same way Chinese power works in a white world, Same way Indian power in theory could work in a white world. Like the mass organization of black people. That's how it works.
That's basically acquisition. I mean, and if you put it in a more practical term, that's more of acquisition of capital. And I'm not saying, because I'm not being specific, but capital. Capital meaning land, meaning businesses, meaning tangible things that hold a lot. I mean, that are able to sustain their value over an extended period of time.
Put it this way: why does the Sudan need an army necessarily? Who's invading Sudan? Nobody. But how much money do they spend on probably military in Sudan, or a place like Chad, for instance? Like Chad has a big army and they're willing to use it. If you had Africa organized, maybe Chad would just be a place where you do business, raise cattle, sheep, whatever it is. But they don't necessarily need an army. Where you would need an army is places that would be strategically invaded by an outside force, right? So you have all of these countries spending money on military, guns, all this stuff, when that money could easily be spent into infrastructure or other things. But because they're a country, in some ways, they need to do things that countries do. So black power, meaning organization of black people, would eliminate a lot of the spending that isn't necessarily necessary.
Okay, so actually, I want to direct this to Tony and MB specifically. Do Black Americans see their future in cooperation with Africa? Tony?
I think that in general, Black people, especially ADOS in particular, are more concerned about their plight in America as it is versus, I'll put it this way. I don't think that Black people in America are in a position where they could sort of empower Africa to the extent that people sort of place them in, like even economically. Like I get, different arguments about like, oh, the Black spending dollar, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think that I just don't believe the hype that we can do as much with, certain countries, especially like it would have to go both ways if Africa was as inviting to us, like even in terms of the ease of getting like a passport or citizenship to African countries. But just to uproot your life from America and move to Africa, like can you buy property all of a sudden? Can you own a business and things of that nature? I think that there are a lot of developing countries within Africa as a whole who are still trying to situate their own citizens, let alone have Black Americans, trying to find their riches or trying to get their equality by going somewhere else where the system may not already be as solid as they would hope.
MB?
I think I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't even think that a lot of Black Americans think that Africa is like, they think huts and shit. You know what I mean? It's ignorant.
Still in 2020.
Yeah, they don't think of, when they think of Nigeria, they think of the jungle. They don't think cities and beauty. You know what I mean? It's so why would they stake their future on a place that they feel is the third world? What can Africa do? That Africa's not even a place they want to go on vacation. Why would they stake their future on it? You know what I mean? I think it's pessimistic, but I think that's where we are. You know what I mean?
DT?
Do Black Americans see their future in cooperation with Africa? I can't speak to what Black Americans think in that way. I'll say that I think like the ADOS movement has a point in some instances where, like, obviously if you're Black, so for me, my father's Ugandan, right? So my claim to Blackness is more of the continental persuasion, right? If reparations hit, I shouldn't be able to go up to the office and be like, hey, yo, my people were enslaved. Let me get money, because that's not true. So to delineate the different types of Black people in the world that there are, ADOS, I think, needs to exist. I don't know if I would necessarily, they can do it however they want to do it. It's none of my business, really. Outside of the fact that I hope they get their money, right? But looking at a more global context, I do think that solidarity and having links with the diaspora, just whether it's the Caribbean, Europe, the Americas, Africa, if you want things from, I don't know, if you want to petition the UN or whatever it is, you probably need to work together in some ways, because let's say Black Americans who have links to chattel slavery, do you just campaign against the United States itself, even though there's hundreds of years of history that involved Great Britain? So do you just start in 1783 or whenever the Constitution was ratified in 1789 or whenever it was? Do you just start there? Or do you actually go back to like 1619 or 1516, whatever the year, 1619, I guess? That was the British. So then that would then parallel you to, hey, maybe there's people in Jamaica or Trinidad or Ghana or any place where there was colonialization, imperialism, that also were affected by Great Britain. So in that sense, I do see there needs to be cooperation, but am I getting feedback?
Oh no. I think, sorry, I'll miss it. Go for it.
No, I mean, I only had one sentence left. So in that sense, I do feel like there needs to be cooperation, or at least that's a benefit. But whether or not Black Americans see it that way, or even if Africans see it that way, or if any Black people see it that way, I can't speak on behalf of everyone. That would be arrogant.
So guys, that is it for this week, man. Because but look, this is a great discussion. Thank everybody for joining in, man, and also thank everybody in the live chats for your contributions, man. And look, I said again, with this kind of stuff, it's all about just having real conversations and just really putting everything out there. There is nothing that's really on the table. And even for someone like Roberts, who feels like he has learned a lot from this conversation, I think that's great. And I think we have done our job in sort of educating people who want to be educated. So shout out to everybody who's been part of the conversation. Remember, guys, to like, subscribe, and we'll be back here next Tuesday for another one of these guys. Peace out, stay true. One. Peace, guys. Peace.
Peace.